a True Weird Wednesday. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
So, listen, this crazy weather it's beyond crazy, this diabolical weather that is heading for parts of the East Coast. I don't think it's going to disrupt us, but we're worried about it disrupting you. I have been all over social media late this afternoon, and I'm seeing the steps people are taking. Like all of our listeners on GNI in Wilmington, all of our Florida listeners. If you are in the Crystal River area,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And I just saw shortly before we signed in that Atlanta looks like it's going to take a direct hit. And it's rare for a hurricane to come inland. Hurricane Hugo took out Charlotte years ago, and everyone that lived through it is still traumatized. So we don't take that lightly, and we're real worried. We're worried about the Panhandle. We're worried about Georgia. We're worried about the coast of North Carolina. I've seen some posts from people in South Carolina saying, "What about us?" But it's looking like the prediction is that it just kind of bypasses. But you never know. The thing about a storm like this, you can't get cocky because, like Hurricane Hugo, I went to bed that night thinking it wasn't coming anywhere near us, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, it sounded like a freight train was in my bedroom, and I didn't have electricity for like 3 weeks. I mean, it was the National Guard. Remember, Max?
Oh, I remember they had to direct traffic. There were so many traffic. 90% of our of Charlotte, where we are,
Yeah.
had no electricity.
And at night, the National Guard, everything was dark. The National Guard in tanks was patrolling and maintaining a curfew. It was hardcore. So we take hurricanes and storms really seriously. And I've never seen one that wasn't a nightmare for someone. Like it might skip you, but I can promise you it's pounding the hell out of someone else. So our thoughts are with you. If you're able to join us tonight, we're sure glad to see you here.
Regina says that they're already getting rain in Palm Coast, and I think Palm Coast is on the East Coast, but you're still getting some bad weather from it. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm thankful Regina is on the eastern side, and Tony and Kyle. Like I know y'all, and I'm looking at where everyone lives and going, oh no, I'm so worried about this person. I'm so worried about this person, and trying to be hopeful that you got to leave. Like I tell my kids all the time, leave that door cracked just a half an inch for a miracle because anything can happen. But y'all do be careful out there. And now we will not bum you out with more hurricane talk. Let's talk about weird stuff. And I want to say hi to Matt Hardesty, who said our 2-part episode about the Pineys was amazing. New Jersey is a misunderstood and wonderful place. That's like that's how we felt. Like the Pine Barrens are exquisite, and not just as a natural environment, which is there's just nothing like the New Jersey Pine Barrens. There are forests and there are wildernesses, but the unique combination of sand and pines and bogs and cranberries and ghost towns and ruins and all of the history from the founding of America. It's just a phenomenal place. And then you layer in the legends that the indigenous people left us about it being the land of the dragon. And you can see the seeds of the cryptid, the Jersey Devil, were planted hundreds and thousands of years ago. And Max and I believe that whole Lene Lenape legend about the dragon, it matches the description of the Jersey Devil. So you know us, we're like, hey, it's probably real.
Yeah.
We're here to believe it.
And the New Jersey Devil is a lot. We've talked about the Mothman before, with this creature that's a winged creature that's really made a big presence up in the Chicago area in the last couple years. And the New Jersey Devil resembles it a great deal. So,
Yeah. We don't know everything. Like there was something I was going to do on the show, on the Bob and Sheri show, that I decided not to do because it would just be like swimming through molasses to try to explain it. But this idea that human consciousness is actually separate from our physical meat suit and part of the quantum field. So the quantum field is the universe. And it's like amazing and beautiful. And it totally validates whatever you believe. If you're a person who believes only in science, boom, physics. If you're a person of faith, boom, a soul, a creator. Like it's this amazing thing, but it would take me so long to explain it. And then no sooner would I explain it than Bob would say, so are you saying that there's a ghost in my head? And then time's up and we have to go to a commercial. So we're probably going to end up doing a True Weird Stuff episode on consciousness. Hey, Cheryl Newton. Matt Hardesty lives an hour from Mount Pleasant. If we do a Mothman episode, we could come stay at Matt's house. That would be really cool. I love a good cryptid. Heather loves a good cryptid.
You sure you want to invite us, Matt?
Yeah. We bring so much equipment. Max is quiet. I'm kind of loud. You wouldn't know Doc was there. Heather and I would keep you awake. But yeah, we would love to do a Mothman episode, and we will. Mm-hmm. I try to balance it. Like, here's some murder. Here's a badass woman you didn't know about. Here's a place you've never heard of. Here's something spooky. And coming up, we have a run of episodes. This Friday, we're talking about the first moon landing hoax, which was not the Apollo 11. It was actually about 123 years or so before NASA was even a twinkle in your eye. And then we're going to follow that up with some pretty wild near misses in space. And then we're going to hit the multiverse and the Mandela effect. And then after those 4 episodes, which are kind of in the science side of our True Weird Stuff world, then we're going to come back probably with something really scary and then some bloodthirsty murder.
Got a balance.
Oh, look, Carolyn Haynes has the chupacabra in Texas. But there's something to that legend. Max or Heather, any of you guys follow the chupacabra?
I've heard of it, but I'm not very familiar with the story.
It's another cryptid. It has, like, many of these cryptid stories have like a long lineage. There are generations of people reporting them, but there's something to the chupacabra. Like, I'm not saying the chupacabra is a skinwalker, but there's that same sort of dimensionality that you see with the entities or whatever they're called out on Skinwalker Ranch. It's like it's here 1 second and it's gone. So I don't know. We're going to have to dig deep on that one. But first we have to get through how the universe was completely destroyed in a single microsecond, launching all of us into a parallel timeline that feels like home isn't home. And if you are someone, show of hands, who with us tonight walks around sometimes feeling like this is not the reality that I remember. Like, yeah, like shit's weird. And I'm not even talking about, although we're going to cover the classic Mandela effects. And I'm going to tell you about, it blew Max's mind, a study that a psychologist out of the University of Chicago and a neurologist out of Dartmouth did on people and their memories and how consistent the Mandela effect was. Like, the only memory mistake in this study group was that. That's going to blow your mind. But if you walk around, like I walk around every day going, what is happening? What did that person say? How is this reality? You're going to want to stick around for the next round of multiverse and physics.
Jessica's saying happy hour on Wednesday. Yes, it's Weird Wednesday. That's what it is.
Yes, we do once a month or so, right, Heather? We do True Weird Wednesday. So, look at Marlene. She feels that way every single day. Hi, Ivan. Ooh, a man named Ivan, very powerful and sexy. And he's in Caribou, Maine. Hi, Darren and Isa and Stephanie in Santa Rosa, California, who's currently shopping for a homecoming dress and watching from a dressing room. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Hi, Diana Casella in Florida and Roger in Plainville, Kansas. Glass of white, glad you're having it. Yeah, so let's talk about what is y'all's favorite, like spooky,
Yeah.
sort of unsolved, mysterious thing? Oh, hey, Robert Fisher. Robert is one of our voice actors in True Weird
Yay.
Stuff. Yay! Hi, Robert. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Vivian Fisher. They've all been in the show. Yeah, yeah. So we want to hear what some of y'all are really interested in because we may just cover that. Because you'd be surprised how many people will DM me and go, "Have you thought about?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then we'll dig in and do an episode on it. I have a whole file on my computer of people recommending. You should check this out. You should check this out. We are going to do there's a great story, Corpsewood. We're going to do the Corpsewood story that someone recommended to us on True Weird Wednesday one night. So yeah, we want to hear from you.
Just no more enema stories.
You know, I've had so many people that were like, ew, the Enema King. But I want you to think about something. That man suffered from childhood. And he did, he was a king, so he did a lot of really, really unhinged, autocratic stuff. But he also did some pretty amazing things with an anal fistula and being bled and getting how many enemas was it a day, Max? Like 6 enemas a day.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Yeah, there you go.
Allison says she was able to tear herself away from the gripping panic of my sister's dog missing third day. Now she's home. Yay.
Oh God.
I'm on Nextdoor, and that's the lost dog thing. Either people have lost them or people who have found them. I just, it's heartbreaking.
Max, look at Diana Casella. Diana Casella. She's from Philly. My aunt lived close to the Pine Barrens. My mother would always remind us of the devil when we drove through there. It's so entrenched. That's why when Max said, I don't really know a lot about the Jersey Devil. I was like, oh, did you have a normal
And
childhood? You were bullied with the Jersey Devil?
I've been through the Pine Barrens. You have to go through that in order to get to the South Jersey shore. So,
But you didn't know about. Oh, hi, Nick. Nick liked The Boy from Mars. We like that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I will say, the more of this kind of content you consume, the weirder you become. So that's a given, right? But also the more open-minded you become because there's so much of it, you guys. There's so freaking much. Like before we signed on for happy hour tonight, I was reading about this like Black Ops CIA program that was partnered with naval intelligence, retrieving crafts of unknown origin from the seafloor. So those are called unidentified submersible objects, or USOs. So if you listen to the episode called There Be Sea Monsters, one of the things you heard in that episode is that we've only mapped about 20% of the ocean floor, leaving 80% a great big giant question mark. Right? So as I'm reading about this sort of black ops, black budget CIA craft retrieval program, one part of my mind is like, oh, I'm so sure, what a load. But then the other part is like, well, actually, it kind of fits with the other CIA stuff we've investigated, the whole underwater submersible thing. So yeah, you become weirder. Like I think I can see the looks on the faces of my friends and family. Like they're like, oh, here she goes. You do become weirder, but you become more open, I think.
Regina wants to know if it drives Kevin, the True Weird Stuff drives Kevin crazy. He actually likes True Weird Stuff, doesn't he?
He loves True Weird Stuff. So the thing, how some people say like, oh, we've been together forever. We don't have anything to talk about. Or the youngest left home and we barely know each other. We will sit for a solid hour. Now he pushes back. He's a skeptic. So he pushes back and pushes back, but we'll sit there for a solid hour and chew over like a nuance in one of these stories. And again, the more you hear it, the more you're like, And that's an awful lot of, there's an awful lot of smoke there
Yeah.
for there to be no fire, like smoke for decades and decades. And then I also want to tell you guys something that freaked me out that I saw today. Do you want to hear something that freaked me out? So, we haven't done an episode yet on is reality a simulation, but we're going to. I wanted to get through like the particle physics and string theory and the multiverse and what's happening at CERN in Switzerland, what's happening, how, shout out to all my South Dakota people, what is happening underground in the Black Hills of South Dakota, like right freaking now, and you don't know about it. So I wanted to get through all of that before we got to are we living in a simulation? But now's the part where I tell you something that's going to creep you out a little bit. So you've heard of the James Webb Deep Space Telescope, and it's extraordinary. Like it is an amazing human achievement, and it's allowing us to see parts of the universe that were inaccessible to us before. And so when you're looking through a telescope like the James Webb, you're not just looking at space, you're looking at time. So it's the only way that we can really time travel because the James Webb is looking at the past as much as it is looking at the universe. Whoa, past the bomb, right? But that's just the way all space telescopes, the Hubble is like that, right? Everything we look at in space is we're looking at the past. Like the stars, the light of the stars that comes to us now, those stars are dead, right? It just takes forever for the light to travel to us. So, with the James Webb Deep Space Telescope, we are getting data and images that don't compute with our current theories and what we know about the universe. So, a physicist has put this forth as a theory. If you're a gamer, you'll immediately understand what this is. So, when you're playing a video game, the only information that's rendering on the screen is what you can see. So I don't play video games. The last video game that I played was like Miss Pac-Man or whatever. I'm not a gamer because I'm just so incompetent. But when I'm playing Miss Pac-Man, the only part of the game that I'm experiencing is the part I can see. I have no idea what's happening here and no idea what's happening there. The game doesn't need to render that for me because I can't see it. And the human brain and the human vision system works in a similar way. We take in a ton of information, and the brain renders what we need to make sense of all of the inputs flying at us. So the reason, according to this physicist, that what the James Webb is beaming back doesn't make sense to us is because we live in a simulation, and the universe has never had to render those sections of the simulation before. It's called the observer effect. And that one of the ways that we have tested this in physics is something called the double slit experiment, which I won't get into because all of us will go slam our heads in a door. But think of it like a video game. When we observe something, it becomes real, and the act of observing changes it. That's Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty, blah, blah, blah. But this physicist says that's why the data coming in from the James Webb Telescope is so wonky, because the universe is like, oh crap, and it's rendering. But this section of the universe is rendering one way, and this section of the universe is rendering the other way. And if our theories, our physics about the Big Bang and an expanding universe are correct, that those two things can't be happening, which brings us to string theory, which accounts for those differences and allows us to have the multiverse. Cheers, everybody. Okay, Max, it's all you.
I'm sorry, my head hurts from all that. It's like being in school. It's like listening to the teacher talk about trigonometry. I go, yeah, I got that. I got that. Now I'm lost. Oh, well.
It is so hard not being like, I don't know what kind of intelligence you have to be a physicist, but it's really, really hard when you're basically like a liberal arts major to make these things make sense. But some of the ways that we know this, that it's not just like high-minded theory anymore, is because of what's happening in CERN with the particle colliders and what's about to be happening underground in the Black Hills of South Dakota. So super duper interesting. And yes, Sandra, my brain is broken too. And Lori, that does call for a glass
Glass
of
of
wine.
wine.
Yeah, it does. So I try to mix it up. I try to mix it up: cold-blooded murder, badass woman, shocking thing that everyone should have known about, but they didn't teach us in school, really insane physics, astronauts.
My brother can do that. He'll go into the physics and he'll talk about how everything's an illusion and he can explain why and then somehow tie Einstein into it. And I'm going, I played the duck sound effect on the Bob and Sheri show.
I know. As I'm researching all this, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a Capricorn who loves to cook. I don't know anything of what we're doing. But it's super interesting. And okay, so the idea that, and we'll get to this in our reality is a simulation episode, but there are people that say, well, that accounts for deja vu and past life memories and all of that. Because, and this was the most depressed. I told Max this. I was so depressed. Max was like, "Did you have a good weekend?" And I was like, Max, I'm so upset." And he's like, "What happened?" I said, "I read this article about how if reality is a simulation, we are our own avatars and we do reincarnate, but only as ourselves. And at this point, I'd like to be a milkmaid in like medieval Spain. Like, can I be someone else for a minute?" Heather, the idea that you are Heather over and over and over again.
That's exhausting.
Yeah, that's how I felt too.
I'm tired of myself already, and I don't know how many lives I've been through. But
So-
can I get, a different option here? That's one thing with past lives, and they talk about like past life contracts and all these different things that you do when you're in the baby soul's waiting room. The fact that like I would agree to this is the part that sticks me with that. I'm like, there's no way that I would sign up for this.
I'm cool with whatever, mostly because what choice do we have, right? Like if I sit here and go, I am not going to be living in a simulation and there's no reincarnation and I'm going to that country club heaven that they taught me about in school, I don't have any control one way or the other, right? You have faith and you try to do your best to be a good person. But the idea of being Max, of being us over and over and over.
Well, the idea is, I think that the reason we keep coming back is there's certain issues that we're trying to resolve, and it takes a lifetime to do it. And then if you didn't, some of it you didn't get right, then you have to come back and work on it again. That is a theory about that.
I have always had the feeling that I came back too soon and impulsively because my mother was heartbroken. And so here's the deal. My mom had my older brother, who I love, Mark, Brittany's dad. And then she got pregnant again with identical twin boys. And those babies died after they were born because twin pregnancies are dangerous. And when my mom was having a twin pregnancy, we didn't have the kind of NICU and stuff that we just didn't have. We didn't have what we have now. And my mom delivered those babies and they lived for a short time. And then one died and then the other died. My mother is still grieving this loss, in part because when it happened, she was told, "Oh, you're young, you can have more children. Let's just put this behind us." And no one honored or acknowledged her loss. No one sat with her and let her grieve. And so she swallowed that. And I think that I was up in the baby soul's waiting room and I looked at this. My mom was barely out of her teens. I looked at this devastated woman who nobody could comfort, who wanted to have a little girl and said, "All right, I'll go." And God was like, "Hey, did you see who your father's going to be? He's a monster. I'm good. I got this. I can handle it." Like, I I feel like I came back too soon.
I believe that, Sheri. I do. That I do believe.
I came back too soon. But maybe it wasn't too soon because maybe that was exactly what was supposed to happen. And it's interesting because my mom is 82 now, and she lost those babies more than 60 years ago. And the grief is as raw today as it was then. Because grief, so I'm gonna put my social worker hat on, which is tight because my tinfoil hat is on. But I put my social worker hat on and tell you that grief denied is grief delayed. Like, it waits. You can't push it away. It is the most patient thing. Grief is so patient. Grief will just sit there and sit there and sit there until you have a vulnerable moment, and then here it comes. And that's what I think has happened, for my mom.
Yeah.
I like Lynette, who said she's from Logan, Ohio. I told my husband this week, I'm coming back as a husband next time because I'm tired of being a wife and mom. Queen.
Yeah. Well, so when we come back, do we come back as the same gender?
Well, if you look at what Dr. Jim Tucker has done at the University of Virginia in past life research, the answer is no. The answer is no. We come back in all sorts of ways. So, so there's like a bunch of different schools of thought. Are we living in a simulation and Heather just keeps being Heather every time the game resets? Or are we, as the Dr. Jim Tucker's research suggests, are we infinite and immortal souls who incarnate in these earthly bodies to learn the lessons that only emotion and fragility can teach us?
Yep. I mean, that I do like that. Yeah, because I think that I think there are certain experiences that we're supposed to have. I think there's certain challenges that each of us are given, and that is how we deal with those challenges as we go through life, and then be of service to others.
And do you ever feel sometimes, I'm going to ask everybody here, do you ever feel sometimes like that you've closed a loop, right? That you completed an assignment in some ways? I don't know really how to say it. Like, something happens and you make a transition. Let me use the video game metaphor. You level up, right? You're like, okay, I'm done with that. I've leveled up in the game. I'm gonna have to come play it again, poor Heather, but I've leveled up this time. Do you never feel that way?
Yes, I do feel that way. I feel that there are certain things that I have overcome in my lifetime that where I have leveled up. Yeah, I do.
It's an interesting thing because that ties in. Our astrologer Charlie King was talking about how there's like that 15-year karmic cycle that just ended because of Saturn's retrograde. So I wonder sometimes how much of that is tied into astrology and all those things, because for me personally, I feel like I have changed so much just in the past year.
I would agree with that, actually, as someone who knows you.
That's a lot.
Like, you have leveled up.
There's a lot of things that are different that places I wouldn't go back to.
Internally as well as externally, right?
Yeah, mostly internally, actually. Emotional places I won't go back to.
So when I got married to my ex-husband, I replayed a lot of scripts.
Which one? I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
There's so many. Well, Max, I'm a giver. Why should I leave a man untraumatized if I can stick a ring on it and drive him nuts for a few years? When I married my children's father, there was clearly karmic work to be done, and that was the doorway through which my kids were meant to enter the world. And I did that work, and it felt horrifically familiar, but I did the work. And I would have loved to have had a different outcome, because you always want a happy ending. But I know what you mean, Heather, like I did. I did do that work. Kim Ward said, I love you guys. I don't believe in reincarnation. I believe we go to heaven or hell. However, I respect others' beliefs.
Well, thank you, Kim.
Yeah. I respect your belief. Most of my family members do not share my kookiness.
Kim, I would have believed that too, but I've had a lot of weird stuff that's connected to me in the 1920s and the 1930s, and I cannot explain it. And I just have this very weird connection and a little real familiarity with that time period. So that's why I believe that.
So, Kim, let me say this. Time isn't linear. Like Einstein knew that, right? We experience time as linear. Like I am born and I grow older, which is a privilege, and then I die and I am judged, right? And I go to heaven or I go to hell. Um, I think that your belief is probably correct. I just don't know that it happens on a human schedule, on a linear human schedule. Someone that Max and I are obsessed with is Dr. Eben Alexander. So he's a neurologist, he's a doctor
Yeah.
who had a medical crisis and he was on life support. He was clinically brain dead. He was hooked up to an EEG. There was no activity for like 7 days.
Yeah, spinal meningitis, I think.
Yeah. And he was an atheist. He did not believe he just believed, well, here we are in our meat suit. Let's do our best. And then, we return to the earth. So during that period where he had no brain activity at all, and your brain, we are made of stardust and electricity. Your brain is an electrical pile of goo, right? There was no activity. He had the most extraordinary experience and he wrote a book about it. We had him on the radio show when the book came out,
Right.
years ago, probably in the early 2000s.
Called Proof of Heaven, I believe, is the name of the book.
And he's written another book just recently. And what he talks about is the levels, hell to heaven, and how real they are and how we do experience them. We don't, in his, I guess you call it a near-death experience, but they can't explain why he was so aware and having so many experiences and memories when his brain was dead. But in his experience, it wasn't linear. There was this like very primal level that was loud and dark and painful. And remember, Max, and the goal was to ascend.
Right.
What was the name of the doctor again? Somebody was asking.
Dr. Eben Alexander.
Eben, Allison, Eben, Alexander.
Yeah. And it's on Amazon.
And it is called Proof of Heaven. So, I mean, here's the good news about that. I know a lot of people who profess to have faith who are terrified of death, blinded by a fear of death, which is crazy to me because if you are a person of faith, there is no death. Is that fair? Is that a fair way to put it? There's no death if you're a person of faith.
Right. It's funny because my parents, of course, went to church their entire lives, and my father passed away last November, and I saw him last. I think it was you guys were at Podcast Movement, so it must have been in August. But I sat there and talked to him in one of the last conversations we had. He says, "Where do you think we go when you die?" And I said, "I don't know, Dad. I guess that's why they call it faith." I mean, I didn't know what else to say, but it certainly was something. He was at that point, 102 or 101, and he was, contemplating it. He was wondering, what does happen, and I don't think, none of us know, but I feel very optimistic about what it is that comes next, and I think that there is a great deal of reason to be optimistic. I really do.
Well, I like what Matt says. Like, why are the concepts of heaven and hell exclusive from reincarnation? Isn't it possible that heaven or hell and not purgatory is the waiting room? That's what I believe. I'll tell you what you don't want to do. Let me tell you what you don't want to do. You don't want to spend a lot of time contemplating the Big Bang and the birth of the universe.
Well,
because what's outside the universe? Well, there's nothing outside the universe. The universe is infinite and boundless, except once upon a time, and we actually can put a date on it, there was an infinitesimally small particle that was hotter than anything that erupted. and began rapidly expanding outward. And that's how we have In and Out burgers and, you know, us, Netflix, and here we are in reality. Don't spend a lot of time contemplating that because you'll lay awake at night hyperventilating and breathing into a paper bag like Lamar's mama,
We
which I can tell you is a thing that has just happened.
I can remember being in first grade in Catholic school. This is not a slam on my Catholic education, but I'm in first grade and they're talking about where we go when we die. It seemed a little soon to me
Was that
at the age
Halloween?
of 6 that I'm concerned about this. But it was either purgatory, heaven, hell, or there was this other place called limbo. So limbo was sort of a catch-all for we're not sure.
Well, I mean, when my mom's babies died, and they were born alive, they got names, they were held, they had little dimples. I mean, when my mom's babies died, the hospital chaplain sent in a priest because my mom was Catholic. She's not anymore. She's Church of Latter-day Saints now. The priest refused to baptize her babies because they were dead, and he told my mom they'll spend eternity in limbo. And that was the end of Catholicism for my mom. So, like, we don't know. It's a great, vast mystery. And, like, how about a little comfort, right? How about a little comfort for the grieving? And what the hell is limbo? We don't really teach that anymore, right? Catholicism.
Limbo is a dance that we did that was under a yardstick that you had to contort your body.
Yeah. I like what Allison said. This conversation tonight is perfect for me. I'm a woman of faith, but I had a terrifying dream last night that I was being put to death, and I had to know for sure where I was heading for. Yeah. I mean, is there nobody here tonight that doesn't feel like it's right here, like you can't pull it into conscious memory, but there's this feeling right here that you know where you came from? Nobody?
I mean, I think and the theory has been floated too that the reincarnation that is the purgatory. Do you see what I mean?
That we have to keep returning here.
Purgatory is not somewhere else. It's here, and we keep on returning because we're trying to evolve to a plane with each time we come.
When we talked to James Van Prague, and that episode of True Weird Stuff is called Talking to Heaven, we talked about this stuff. We talked about, like, what, where do you go? And he was like, oh, I don't want to die right now because I have stuff planned, but I can't wait. I can't wait to go to the next place. And he talked about how this is soul school, and we come into these bodies because the earth, this world is such, we're ruled by our emotions, crimes. We're just these volatile emotional creatures. But if you have a real fear of death and you're kind of struggling a little bit, I really think you should go listen to that episode with James Van Prague. What do you think, Max?
Yeah, I think that will give you some optimism and some reason for hope. And he's very I, he's very convincing with what he has to say, and I just believe that we have reason for optimism. I think that we have the challenges we have in this life. We should try to overcome them, and you know, that's was it. You remember the movie Defending Your Life, Albert Brooks?
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a great. If you haven't seen that movie and you're looking for something that you probably haven't seen because it was released, but it was not a movie that was probably.
It wasn't like a hit, right?
It wasn't a big hit, but it's very interesting because he dies, and then the movie is called Defending Your Life. So I think that's it's kind of like a court hearing.
It's funny and it's beautiful and it's romantic, and it fills you at the end of it. You're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. Like, I know that, I'm doing this right now, but I'm going to do something else after this is over. Did you guys see what Kathleen Winans posted? I have a friend who clinically died after a hysterectomy and recalls the entire experience, and she is not afraid to die now at all. That's what people who have these near-death experiences say.
Well, that's what Eben Alexander did. The thing that was fascinating about him, he apparently was adopted, and so when he died, he met the people that were biologically related to him who had already passed. That is who he met during his experience when he had this meningitis, and as far as they were all concerned, he was dead. I mean, he was dead except for unhooking the machines before he came back. So it's I think we're very connected to the people that came before us. I think we're very connected for whatever comes next.
I read a woman's account of a near-death experience, and something that happened to her shook me to my core. So she died in surgery, and they were trying to bring her back. And again, we have to remember that our human experience of time is not necessarily the way time behaves. Like what we experience as a second could be an eternity in another context, and vice versa. So she dies on the operating table, and there's the white light, and there's someone waiting for her, and it's a brother. But she never had a brother in life. And the doctors are able to revive her, and back she comes. And she's transformed. People who have these experiences are just, I mean, Max will tell you, they're just transformed. Their
They
fear,
are.
their fear of death is gone. Their attachment to like petty nonsense is gone. They're just different. And so as she slowly recovered, she told her mother that what had happened. And she expected her mother to be like, oh, you were medicated, you were dreaming. Her mother like went completely pale. Her mother had had a child that died, and nobody in the family would talk about it. So they pushed it away like it never happened. And yet here she is having this, I'm getting goosebumps, having this near death experience. And there's her brother, and her brother's like, it's not your time, but I'm so happy to see you. I just about like came out of my chair um, thinking about that. Kathleen Winan said about her friend who who died having a hysterectomy. She said she recalls seeing her grandparents, the whole bright light thing. She recalls feeling peace and warmth and no pain, and she remembers her spirit re-entering her body and feeling cold and pain. And that's right, Max. Isn't that the common
Yeah.
experience? Yeah. So maybe we don't need to spend so much of our lives terrified. Because, okay, on the one hand, your fear doesn't change the outcome. And on the other hand, what's the point of all that fear? Right?
I mean, it's something you certainly can't do anything about. I mean, there's people that control is a very important thing for them, and of course, control is a myth. you because we don't have control over that.
Yeah. So, but it's hard. I had a therapist tell me once when I was like 26. She said, you have to be careful because a fear of death can poison the sweetness of life. You have to be so careful about that because you don't want all of your choices and decisions to be coming from that place of fear. Because unless something insane happens, we're all going there.
Yeah. Right. The best thing you can do for your spirit is to be in the moment at all times and not be back here or up there, but be right here, right now.
Be right here. So, ooh, look what Jill O'Perry said. As a nurse, I've spoken to a few patients that were resuscitated, and their experiences were very similar. That's the other interesting thing about bless you.
Bless you.
If you look at the literature, the research on people who've had NDEs, there is a sameness to the story, and it's a sameness that goes. Here's a person of extreme faith. Here's an atheist. Here's a person like Eben Alexander with an incredible level of education. Here's a person who didn't finish 8th grade. Here's someone from America. Here's someone from
that's the other part.
Irkutsk. Like it's this whole human thing that
Right.
we're experiencing. And wouldn't you hate to walk through that tunnel only to learn that all the time you spent being fearful and angry and petty meant that you had to go back, do it again?
So not only will you be lighter in this life, but that means you don't have to come do this again unless you're really enjoying it. Unless you're really enjoying. I mean, you know,
And don't you feel like Bob does not like when we talk about the baby
no,
son's waiting
no,
station?
it makes him very uncomfortable.
And poor Lamar's like, get thee back, devil. Like, poor Lamar. But isn't it comforting to think that we travel in families of souls and we find each other over and over and over again?
Hmm.
Like, like your people, these are your people. And they're in different bodies this time, and they're doing different things, and you're connecting with them in different ways. But are you going to sit here and tell me you've never felt that spark of recognition when meeting someone for the first time?
You're like, you feel a kinship with this person like instantly, and you go, I don't know you well enough to feel this way about you, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, oh, there you are. But,
Yeah.
Just like you didn't realize you were missing that person out of your life, but it's like they
There you are.
can be there. Yeah.
Kathleen Wyden, I'll walk through the tunnel and my ex is there.
Oh, God forbid, no. I'm pretty sure my ex won't be in that tunnel, girl. He'll be in a different tunnel.
Angela's a Buddhist. Thank you for discussing all this.
I just think we should be open to the possibilities, because when you're open to the possibilities, you're not only is your mind more open, but your heart is more open. And if you think about yourself not as like this angry meat rocket, but as like an eternal immortal being that's just kind of cruising through this particular run of the game, and let's don't be a dick, right? Let's try to leave it better than we found it. I think that's more comforting, right?
Jill Perry says, I don't want to come back. Jill, here's the thing. Just overcome all your difficulties in this one and you won't have to worry about it.
Yeah. You'll move on. You'll move on. I love Patty Lawrence. I was late, assuming Bob not here. Ha 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 ha. It's True Weird Wednesday, girl.
Assuming correctly.
Bob is definitely not here. This stuff makes him very, very, very uncomfortable. And that's the part that confuses me. Like, I don't know why. Like, okay, I do not want this to be a simulation like a video game where I keep coming back as myself. That would suck. I'd honestly, to God, rather be a milkmaid somewhere. But I love the idea that, one, we're eternal, and two, we have no understanding of consciousness or reality or time. Like, what makes us think that the entire universe, above, below, heaven, hell, earth, operates on this clock? Like, really?
Hang on a second.
Oh,
Moj.
Mojo.
You know what today is? Do you want to know what today is? You tell me. It's National Schnauzer Day today.
It's National Schnauzer Day.
Oh.
Mojo, I love you so much. You're my soul man. Look at you. He's the handsomest boy.
He is.
I am so in love with this dog. It's ridiculous. It completely distracts me. Like when Max used to bring Mojo into work, I would be like, and I'll tell you what else we need to do, and it needs to happen effective tomorrow. Mojo.
Yeah.
He's not a dog.
I want to read what Mary Thorstad just commented. She said, my mother-in-law died on the table and saw herself looking down on her family. Thankfully, they revived her. She came back, but she told my sister-in-law that she saw her in a pink dress. My sister-in-law never wore pink anything again. The rest of her life, except for the day of her except for the day of her funeral. But anyway, she also told us that she had the most peaceful feeling and that she was never, ever afraid to die again. Yeah, like, don't you know people that they live their whole lives in dread and fear of, of that, knowing that, damn, it's coming.
Yeah.
Allison wants a True Weird Stuff episode on comas and people who've come out of them. I was in a very short one, 3 days from a horse accident, but I know others have had interesting experience. So, Allison, do you have any memories or anything from when you? I'm curious. Do you have anything from when you were in that coma? Because you do hear different things, don't you? About people. Some people wake up from a coma, right, Heather, and they report that they couldn't talk back, but they could hear what was being said to them. They knew you were by their side.
I read this one story about this woman who watched herself from the ceiling.
While
And
she was in a coma.
she could name all the people who visited her. But yeah, she watched herself.
That would be Bob. If Bob was in a coma, he would keep a visitor's log, not just with when you came, but how often and how long you stayed.
By the way, Charlie King, our astrologer, is on here tonight.
Hey, Charlie.
Charlotte,
Hey.
that's you, is it not?
Yeah, that's Charlie right there.
That's Charlie.
Yeah. Julie had an NDE at 4 years old from a horse accident. I mean, it happens. You know, the weird thing is, these things happen like more often than you know, but people are shamed into silence because unless you're willing to let your weird flag fly and know that people think you're kooky and they're making fun of you, unless you're willing to do that, you're going to swallow, right? You're going to swallow those stories. Yeah. And life is this life is brief and beautiful. And like, I've wasted a lot of it. I've wasted so much time. Like we all have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Like we've all wasted so much.
But I think the point that you made earlier is that people with the near-death experiences talk about the petty things that they hold on to, the resentments and the anger and all those slights of life, that sort of thing. That is one thing that we really need to overcome.
There's just no point to it. There's no point. And when you, so like one of the, regardless of what you believe, like you believe nothing, you believe in country club heaven, reincarnation, regardless of what you believe, one thing that you have to know is that so much of human behavior is motivated by fear, and that fear wears disguises. Fear dresses itself up as anger. Fear dresses itself up as sorrow, right? Fear dresses itself up as aggression. Like we spend so much of our lives in a place of fear and reacting because we're afraid. We're afraid of being humiliated. We're afraid of being discovered. We're afraid of being hurt. And so we have all this stuff that we do, all these defenses we put up because we're coming from like such a place of fear. If you knew and really believed, like these people who've had NDEs, if you knew and really understood that this is just a flash in your internal existence, you probably wouldn't be so scared of everything.
Most of our fears are like those cardboard cutouts you see. Just you press against it, you go, that's what I was afraid of. Oh.
Like right off the top of your head, what scares you the most?
Spiders. Spiders.
What scares you the most, Max?
Friday morning when I have to put a True Weird Stuff episode together and I have all the pieces together like parts of a car in a garage, and I've got to put it all together in the car to get it running so that it can drop later that night. That is one of my greatest fears.
And we just had an instance where both Max and I, it was the Mandela effect. We were completely and totally convinced we had done something, and we had never done it at all.
I spent an hour looking for the sound file, and I looked for it in every possible folder. Did I misplace it? Could I have done this? Could I have done that? And then I looked at the script and I went, I don't think we did this.
Max called me and he's like, I don't think we did this. I was like, I remember doing it. I remember talking with you. I remember the whole thing. No, it never happened.
No, I don't think so. No. So that was a great example of the Mandela effect.
I'm afraid because of the way I grew up. I'm afraid of not being able to help my children or a family member or friend who needs it. So I work myself into the ground as like some sort of magic protection to guarantee that I'll always be able to help you with your groceries or whatever. And it is such a waste of energy and life and time. And we really need, whether it's spiders or fear of having nothing, right? We really need to examine what we're so scared of.
Yeah, people say they're afraid of being by themselves. Well, you come here by yourself and you leave by yourself. I mean, the door in and the door out, you are by yourself. I mean, you might have something afterwards, but that's a reality of the situation,
I
you
mean,
know.
I guess unless you're a twin, then you come here with somebody else.
And can you imagine the devastation of losing that person? We have identical. We have two sets of twins in our family, and I
That,
can't.
that Hardesty is afraid of Puritans.
He's right to be because they're the bastards of all time.
Thank you, Matt. That's a riot.
So like Max is right. Like we all come into this world and leave it alone. But like you're not alone. Like you're not. You are right now, this moment, you're in a community of people who want to think about and explore the same things you want to think about and
Yeah.
explore. Like you're with your people right now, and you can say anything and no one's going to laugh at you or judge you. No one's going to say, oh, that didn't happen, oh, that's not real, oh, that's of the devil. No, you're in a space right now where you can say, like Darren did when his dad passed a year ago and he couldn't be with him. Darren was in bed with COVID, and his sister called and told him that his dad had passed. And after they got off the phone, Darren is lying in bed. A bird flies up to the bedroom window, pecking on the window to get his attention. Never happened before. And Darren believes that was his dad saying goodbye. There's nobody here that's going to argue with that. You're not alone. You're with your people. You just have to find your people. You have to find your people. Your people that are going to go, yeah, this reality is jacked. There's got to be something going on. There's got to be something more. Like you're totally not alone here.
There is. I think that there are so many things that are beyond our ken of understanding. I just accept the fact that I know a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction.
Of a fraction. And then a tiny slice of that covered in dirt. That's what I know.
That's right.
That's what I know. It's interesting because sometimes when I'll be like knee deep in a subject I honest to God cannot comprehend. But I have to find a way to put it into words to make it fit the story, to make it make sense. These multiverse episodes and Mandela effect memory episodes have been hard because I am a liberal arts major and this is physics. But I'll be wrestling with it and wrestling with it. And for just an instant, it'll all make sense. And the peace that you feel of like, we're all like, not only are we all made of like stardust and electricity, we're all made of each other. And we are all awake and aware and alive at this moment on the quantum field. People, you could be doing worse. You know, you could be doing a lot worse. I love what Graham said. My dad came to me as a hummingbird the spring after he died, looked at me through the bay window. So I'm going to tell you guys one thing before we leave about that. So y'all know that my best friend died some years ago. She had the same thing that Bruce Willis has, Rachel's mom, Rachel and Patrick's mom. And I see her everywhere. And sometimes there'll be a stranger who looks like her from the back, and I'll follow that stranger around the grocery store a little bit. I know it isn't her, but I play a little game with myself where I'm like, that's her, and I'm going to catch up to her in a little bit, and we're going to go have an adventure together. And it happened, Heather, when we were in Fort Myers. I was walking back to my room. We had all been hanging out at the pool together with our teachers. And I was walking back to my room, and there she was. And I followed her all the way to the lobby. And when she turned around, of course it was not my friend, but it was my friend in that moment. The people that we love are gone from this place, but they're not gone. They're not gone. And as long as you remember them and say their names, they continue to exist in this world. And so, like, look at what Cassandra said. When her dad passed away in 1999, she was by herself. She heard him, she heard his voice. She couldn't make out what he was saying, but he was laughing. And she knew in that moment that he was okay. That is like, that's not you being crazy. That's not you being spooky or weird or strange. That's you accepting the gift that was given to you from the universe, because time isn't linear. Everything is happening all at once. And the people that you've loved and lost, you haven't lost at all. You're going to see them again. And it may not be like with halos and wings and we're riding around on clouds like we are this, right? It may not look like that, but it's going to be something, and you're going to know it when you see it. And I'm looking at Kelly Wagner. She said, you have no idea how much I needed this. My mom passed on July 7th. I'm sitting here crying. Of course you grieve. You miss this person. I want my friend here. I don't want her on some other dimension. You miss this person. My mother still misses those 2 twin babies, my little brothers that never were. But they're not gone. They're just somewhere else. And you're going to go to that somewhere else too. You are. And I don't know whether that's a video game or you're going to reincarnate as a farmer. I have no idea. But Max will tell you, and he is a person of tremendous faith, like old school faith, the kind of faith that doesn't make people back away from you at a party, which is me. Max will tell you what? This isn't it.
No, this isn't it. No, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you wanted me to speak. Yes, this isn't it. You're right. This is a small part. I think it's a small part. That's what I believe.
And I'm just going to ask the universe in its infinite wisdom, when I see Sam Nash again, if that little son of a bitch could be housebroken in the afterlife. Lord, he wants to be housebroken. He does not want to wear a diaper for all eternity. Please let somebody in the afterlife dream. So let me tell you all once again that, first of all, we're super honored that you're here with us, and we're scared about all of you that are in the path of Hurricane Helene, and we hope that you're taking it seriously. I know if you're in Florida, you're taking it seriously.
Yeah, Jen Benfield asked for prayers on there because they're in Crystal River, and you're going to have some bad stuff there. Yeah.
Nobody in Florida laughs at a hurricane. I'm so scared for Crystal River. I'm praying that the hurricane somehow skips over, and maybe I don't even know how hurricanes work. Go out to sea and do something out there. So we're super thankful that you made time to be with us tonight. And we will see you, of course, in the Baby Souls waiting station and on the Bob Sheri Show tomorrow and Friday night for a brand new episode of True Weird Stuff. And if you listen for no other reason, you should listen, because Max about dies every Friday trying to get that thing produced. And this one is about the first of all the moon hoaxes, and it involves unicorns, tiny zebras, and moon beavers. And if you aren't enthusiastic about a moon beaver, you might want to go and make sure you're still breathing. Because how could you not be excited
about a moon beaver?
Moon beaver. Y'all, we love you.
Love you.
Next on the next True Weird Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.